Okay, everybody. Katelyn Pinch, hello, Katelyn,
Deborah?
is the partner manager at Standard Finishing Systems, a leading supplier of post, press, and paper handling solutions, which we know as finishing equipment, most of us. She joined the company in March 2022, bringing over 5 years of experience in the printing industry. Before joining Standard, she served as the director of marketing at Colordyne Technologies. Caitlin holds a bachelor degree in journalism, advertising, and media studies, definitely up my alley, as well as a master's degree in business administration, both from the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
We met for well, not for the first time because we actually met at D Scoop for the first time when I interviewed you last year, and we ran into each other again at Hunkler this year. And so it was great to catch up with you, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with Standard in a moment. But first, because you are new to the Girls Who Print community, can you share a little bit about yourself? And also, did you pursue a career in print or did print find you?
Great question. I would definitely say print found me. As you mentioned, I left university with a degree in advertising and public relations. And at that point, I joined a marketing and branding agency. And when you're in university in that type of role, they don't really speak about how print is related to an advertising and public relations position. But I was working on project management with print campaigns, printed collateral for events, and I just never made the connection to the print industry at that point. But I was looking to transition from an agency role into a in-house marketing role, which is when I found Colordyne Technologies, and they manufacture print engines for the on-demand label market. At that point, labels, I get it. We all see labels on products, and it was really my first step into print. I was with them for over 5 years before I joined Standard Finishing Systems 3 years ago. And at that point, the full spectrum opened up when we talk about commercial printing, transactional printing, publication. And it was a huge learning curve, especially on the finishing side when you come from the inkjet print side. There's so many processes to learn, so much equipment, the partnerships, and the people we work with. But it's been over 8 years, and I found a passion for printing, found a community in this industry, and it's just an exciting time to be here. There's so many changes in the technology advancement, automation, AI. So it's just a really exciting industry to be a part of.
What are your responsibilities as partner manager at Standard Finishing?
Yeah. So as partner manager, I would sum it up as being, the main communication point between Standard, whether it's our sales team, our service team, customer support, or operations with our print OEM partners. So we make sure the right people are having the right conversations, the right programs are in place, and people on both sides are aware of what the others are doing, because ultimately we want to, deliver total solutions to our customers. So, print and finished products to the end users. Yes.
So just to circle back, Standard is what we would call a distributor. Is that fair to say?
Yes,
And
Standard is the US and Canadian distributor for Hunkler out of Switzerland and Horizon out of Japan, offering pre and post solutions for roll fed equipment as well as finishing solutions, for publishing and commercial print applications.
what leadership qualities are essential for success in the print industry?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say this is a leadership quality exclusively for print, but I think we all have room to be a little more empathetic in every relationship and every interaction we go into. No one knows exactly what everyone's going through, so going in with an open mind, especially if you're a leader or a manager, and just having a little bit of empathy goes a long way when you're working with people. Also, strong communication. I know that's a huge part of my position specifically, but as a leader, if you can't communicate to people, that's it's going to be a challenge. And it's also understanding that the burden of communication falls on you. And if someone's not understanding what you're saying, you need to go back and look at if maybe you need to communicate in a little bit different way for each person you're interacting with. And also just lift others up, look around, look at the people you work with, whether it's in your company, outside your company. When we help support everyone in their roles and help achieve their goals, we all kind of rise together. So, as a leadership quality, I just think lifting people up around you is really important.
I have been to the standard booths at a million trade shows, and there's always a fair amount of women represented in the booth. But in general, finishing is a very male dominated space, and it is technical in a way that the printing equipment isn't, because you can always rely on the on what it makes. When you're oppressed, you could just show someone something really cool and say, look what it makes, and get them interested in it. With the finishing equipment, there's so many more technical aspects to that conversation, to that sale, and certainly how you're communicating about it. So just discuss the learning curve you had for that, if any, and any challenges you might have overcome because someone's like, oh, look, there's a girl doing this now.
Yes. When I joined Standard, huge learning curve. Like I said, I'd been in print for over 5 years, and I kind of thought I had a handle on it. And then I went into the finishing side, and I realized I did not have a handle on it. Every application you finish requires a little bit different setup. It might require different software involved for the imposition. It depends on the layout for the most efficient way to finish a product. There are a million ways to finish something, and I'm not the first to say it, but finishing should come first when you're looking at the process. It should go upstream. And sometimes people don't always think that way. And you're right. As a woman, as a female on the finishing side, it's a little bit more of a challenge sometimes. Just you have to make sure you know what you're talking about. You have to understand the technical aspects. You have to be knowledgeable in what you're saying. But I also think as I came up that curve, I had a lot of support within Standard, a lot of people eager to teach not only myself, but all of the younger people in our organization. They want to pass along that knowledge. So I had the benefits of a really strong organization behind me, and people really advocating to make sure I knew what I needed to know. And also some of it just goes to the individual. I've always wanted to know the ins and outs, so I was making sure I asked questions, which is really important. You'll kind of learn and understand the things that you go out and try and figure out yourself. So some of that's on each individual to just figure out, but I think it starts with the organization behind you, though.
I completely agree. And as somebody who, came into the finishing side of things, again, if you go to the trade shows, obviously if you're a printer, you know this, but I'm not a printer. So I learn about it too as I go along. And the finishing end of, I mean, it's, as a print customer, I know that that's where I'm going to have the most problems. Like, anytime I've ever fought with a printer over something, it was over the finishing, not the printing of it. So it's really something that can mess up the entire job. And that means you have to be investing in the right equipment, which means that you have to know what the right equipment is, which means that you need somebody like you to share the value propositions and all of that. I would like to know if you experienced any, what is referred to as imposter syndrome, when you stepped into this role, and where you found the confidence to ask all the questions that I assume you had to ask, because I have done this, have been walking, running around trade shows for 15 years, and I'm telling you, I ask a million questions because I can't keep up with everything. I don't know how anybody does it. Please.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say I had imposter syndrome, but there's a level of time that it takes to build the confidence in what you're saying. And I always approached it as, it's okay to say you don't know something. I think you get into more trouble when you pretend that you have all the answers and you don't. So I was just really open and honest with people, saying, I'm going to figure this out with you. Let's learn it together. In my position, it's really about knowing who to ask the right questions to. So, I'm just always open and honest. Even today, I get questions every day that I don't necessarily know the technical answers to, but my position is to know who to ask. And so I think just being really open and honest about where you're at can help just build a lot of trust with the people you work with too. They know you're not just feeding them wrong information. They trust that you're going to find the answers, you're going to do the due diligence. So I've always approached it with that perspective in mind.
When I started working in advertising agencies, one of the first things I was told is you can never say no or yes to anybody unless you really know the answer to that question, because you can send the advertising agency into a frenzy with a wrong answer. And so, what we're told to say is, I'm going to check on that and get right back to you. And that was my answer to everything for a year until I understood what I was allowed to say and what I wasn't allowed to say. So I love that you had the same approach to that, really, in many ways. So speaking about approaches, how do you approach problem solving and collaboration with your team, and then with your team and your partners? There's a probably even their customers, but we'll just start with their partners.
Yeah, I'm on a personal level, I'm a trial and error type of person when it comes to problem solving. I like to just start with something and adjust course as you see the results. But I also know not everyone works that way. So when you're on a team, you have to understand how to adapt your style to working with others. And a lot of that, again, just comes back to communication. Having initial meetings to discuss the process, get input is really important internally before you even start anything externally. So just getting everyone to the table, making sure the right people are involved up front has been a huge key to success for me when it comes to overcoming a challenge. And then externally with partners, it's just being available and being a trusted resource, knowing that they can come to you with any of the challenges, and then again, just practicing the open lines of communication. Level setting, making sure everyone's on the same page, having the conversations with all the stakeholders up front, and then executing and making sure that they know you're going to get the job done, even if you're not constantly responding. Just at the start of your career, making sure you're the person who always follows up, because as you go through, the majority of your career, that's what's going to follow you. People are going to remember that from when you started.
Mark Hunt, who is a legend on the equipment side of the industry. He's also in the here today. Hi, Mark Hunt. Um, he's retiring, and you are his successor. Last week, we were all at Hunkler Innovation Days in beautiful Lucerne, Switzerland. And when speaking about you, he just smiled with pride. And what is the significance of your relationship with him?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have Mark not only as a manager but a mentor. He hired me on 3 years ago at Standard, and he's been with me through my journey with them over the last 3 years. And he's allowed me to learn a lot from him. He's always been a sounding board and a resource. And he's really showed me how to work within our company, within finishing, with our partners. And also he's pushed me outside my comfort zone, which is a good thing. I think when you have a manager and a mentor, they need to understand when's the right time to push, but also, maybe when to pull back. And I think he's had a really good grasp on that in our time together. And then lastly, he's been my biggest advocate internally at Standard with our partners outside within the general industry, even talking to you at HID. He's always the first one to speak positively about me, put my name in the hat for something, and volunteer me when the role and the projects would suit kind of my goals and my career aspirations.
I mean, at D-Scoop, I had that exact experience. I went over to interview him, and he's like, "Please interview Caitlin instead." I was like,
Exactly.
"Awesome." And, I mean, that is what Girls Who Print is hoping to show the other gentlemen out there that there are very capable women in the company that can go in front of a camera, that can go on an event stage, that can be interviewed for the magazine article. And it would be very simple for Mark to not pass it along because everybody wants to talk to him because he is a little elusive in a way. I find him someone who doesn't need the spotlight. Like he's not, I don't find him that type of person. When he says something, people listen because it's almost like, oh, Mark Hunt's talking. He did an interview. But very supportive without it being like, look, there's a girl who's doing this now. It was like, this is my very well qualified colleague, and she's taking over for me. How important is it for you in your career to be championed that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important, and like you just said, it's not about, "Oh, I need to lift women up." It's, "I see someone with potential, and I believe in this person, and I'm going to advocate for them across, every avenue, internally, externally, with people throughout the industry and lift them up." And I think that's, the goal when you look at, any mentor, but male mentors to young women as well. It's not about making it related to gender. It's just about lifting up, a colleague that you see potential in.
Yeah. So this is International Women's Day, and this is, we are speaking to women here. So I do want to bring this back down to, the male female thing. Although I completely agree with what you just said, but there are certain challenges that women do face in male dominated industries, whether it's printing or the automotive industry or even some of the technology lanes out there. So. How can having a male mentor help women navigate challenges in male dominated industries? And can you share any examples where this applies to you?
Uh, Um, I mean, one way is just having different perspectives on challenges you're going through. And I think that communication actually goes both ways. I think it's a positive for the mentor and the mentee when you have people with different backgrounds and you can talk about your experiences and how to problem solve. You just get more diverse ideas. You get different types of strategy and a little bit different thinking and ultimately better business outcomes. But I also think, I think you mentioned in your opening remarks the gender gap in leadership, and it is more significantly male. So the reality is, leadership in the company is likely going to be more male. So having men who can see potential in women and leadership potential. Potential to be public facing figures for the company and having them able to advocate internally and externally to make sure that they're getting promotions, that they are being volunteered and recommended for specific projects, especially projects that have advancement potential within a company. It's really important if you are a male in a leadership position to make sure that you're equally identifying women for those roles because that has long-term effects across the industry, across someone's career, and just making sure that you keep that in mind when you're looking at kind of building people up within your organization.
Without naming names or pointing things out too much, can you share an example of a challenge you face as a woman in a male dominated industry that a male mentor had to help you with?
And I don't even think it has to be a challenge. I think we talked about, Mark is approached a lot for speaking and presentation opportunities. And it's both externally, like you mentioned at D Scoop. He also kind of advocated for me to be here today at HID, but also even within our own organization, we had our HID kickoff event. And, it was really his advocacy for me to also join them on stage and present at our opening session, which was to not only my colleagues, but our partners who I work with, as well as all of our mutual customers from North America who are there. And I think, that advocacy just to see more women in public facing roles is really important at all levels across the industry, at every opportunity that we have for them to get up in front of different groups. And that also goes internally, when we're presenting to partners, he is more than happy to step back and say, I think this is an opportunity for you to grow in your role and maybe you should take on this presentation. And we baby stepped it, I would take on part of it and then he would do part. And then I'd get a little bit more of that piece of the pie and a little bit more until we're at the point we are today where I do the majority, if not all of the presentations, and he's just there for support, which I think is something that we all need to think about when we're elevating people in different roles.
We have opened up Girls Who Print membership because we're a nonprofit now. So we have a member platform and program, and we have opened up membership for men. We're referring to them as our allies because there's some people that should not be part of Girls Who Print, but the gentlemen who are interested in moving the industry forward together, we certainly welcome them, and they have a separate sign-up form just for one reason. We ask them specifically why they're joining Girls Who Print, and there's a drop down with 3 questions. I want to be a mentor. I want to learn how to support women. And I have no idea what to do, but I want to do something, right? And those are 3 amazing places to start as far as I'm concerned, because it helps us identify the men who are ready to be mentors. It helps us identify the men who actively want to do something, but just want to check in and make sure it's like the right thing. And I'm using air quotes there because what is the right thing? It's different for every company and every person, but there's I guess, a respectful way of doing it and a disrespectful way, perhaps. And then there's I have no idea what to do, but I know I have to do something. So because you are really a prime example of someone who had a fantastic male mentor, I'm hoping that you can share with the gentlemen out there, especially who will watch the replays. Not all are brave enough to come to our sessions. I don't know if Pablo's still here. Shout out to Pablo. But they do watch the replays. So what is your message to the male leaders out there who want to be better mentors to women?
As you mentioned, mentorship comes in a lot of shapes and forms. So if you can figure out a formal mentorship program, I think that is fantastic. But if that's maybe not something you're ready to step into, there's so many ways to informally mentor people, especially young women within your organization or within the industry. Mark and I had never sat down and were like, we're going to establish a mentorship program with this. It's a little easier if they're your manager. Obviously, they're more involved in your day-to-day activities, but that's not necessary. You can clearly identify people within your organization who you see potential in, and you can simply, provide constructive criticism, as well as positive feedback when they're doing really, really well. You can also just be a safe place for them to go to when they need to ask questions, when they have challenges they're looking to overcome. But if you are going to do that, you also need to be someone who can acknowledge and discuss, and maybe at times, if you're a leader in an organization, take action on gender related challenges. Women have a different experience and unique challenges in a male dominated industry. So if you're interested in mentoring a female, even informally, just be prepared to have that open mindset and be able to discuss those challenges. And then, advocate for them, particularly when they're not able to be in the room. That is probably the number one thing you can do, is, speak up on their behalf. Like I mentioned, recommend them for projects that align with their goals, recommend them for promotions, recommend them for networking opportunities. Um, and I think it's even more prevalent for women who are in public facing roles already. So women in sales, women in marketing roles that are public facing, or those already on a leadership path. So if you see those people, just reach out and give them support, whether it's face to face with them or if it's when they're just not in the room with a leadership team.
Last question, which you don't know. Um, I there was a confidence moment for you in, you know, taking this job in the finishing lane, which was a new lane to you. What gave you the confidence to know that you could succeed at this job?
Great question. I think all of our confidence to an extent comes from within, but it's also having people around us that support us and lift us up and, give us positive feedback. Hearing the things you do well can go a lot further than constantly hearing what you need to do better. And so, I was just really lucky to have people at Standard, and not just Mark. We have a really great leadership team, who are really supportive, and they saw potential in me and they continue to. And I think it's just knowing that they have my back in everything that I'm doing and that they support me in the decisions I'm making. It's really what kind of brings confidence, and it lifts you up as you grow. So I would just say it's having a strong team behind you and joining a company that you can have those team members there.
Well, I, for one, am sad that Mark is exiting, but I am thrilled that you are rolling into that role. Can't say you're taking his place because those are awfully big shoes to fill, but you have your own shoes, and we will focus on those. And anything that Girls Who Print can do to help and support your efforts, we are there. And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. Mark left a lovely comment for you in the chat. And Mark Hunt, I just want to say you are a rock star. You are a genuinely authentic, caring person, and not everything you've done, and what Katelyn said is the most important. It's how you speak about her when she's not there. I was so excited to meet you, Katelyn, because I had heard all these wonderful things, and it was truly from a professional, authentic place. It wasn't just like, oh, here's the new person that's taking over for me, or anything like that. So, yay, Mark Hunt. Yay, Caitlin Pinch. Thank you. Thank you so much.